What up, fight fans? This is Square Circle Productions. This is my latest video in my series on the Black Murderers Row. This one is on Jack Chase. Okay, born Isaiah James Chase in Sherman, Texas, January 27, 1914. He would spend the early part of his career known as Young Joe Louis, after which he took the name Jack Chase. Although he would rank as high as the number 2 middleweight in the world, he, just as the rest of the Murderers Row, never got a shot at the world title. He would, however, hold several regional belts at welterweight, middleweight, and light heavyweight. Chase had a somewhat checkered past, and his various run-ins with the law were often documented. Apparently, he had done time in the early 30s and was released from prison in 1935. And apparently, he took up boxing while in prison. So even though he has officially a record of 122 fights, there is said to be 40 fights before 1936 that he had that were unrecorded. Okay, so he, being born in 1914, was one of the older members of the Murderers Row. He briefly retired in 1946, and he started a lawn landscaping service, but eventually he went back into boxing. He was one of the older members again, and he fought well past his prime. Not so much age-wise, because he was still relatively in good age. He was in his early 30s, but he had lost a step or two, and fights that he probably would have won or done much better in were more competitive than maybe they should have been. Although a lot of those fights were against his fellow Black Murderers Row members, which those were tough fights, no matter what. Okay, and he fought Archie Moore several times. He has losses, victory, and a few draws against Archie Moore. But that being said, he also fought wars. You gotta understand. I mean, it was nothing for fighters of that era, even the known ones like Sugar Ray Leonard and the Carmine Basilios and the Tony Zales and the Rocky Gracianos. These type of guys, it was nothing for them to fight, a 12, 15 round fight, and then 2-3 weeks later turn right back around and fight either a rematch or another tough opponent, in another grueling dogfight. So it was nothing for these guys. But he did fight guys like Charlie Burley, Holman Williams. He couldn't beat Holman Williams, and he couldn't beat Charlie Burley. And like I said, he took more losses than wins against the fellow Murderers Row. But nonetheless, some of those fights were on back-to-back, coming within weeks of each other. And, he had a penchant for talking smack. And he was sparring with the heavyweight at the time, was talking smack. And I think it was either before the Holman Williams fight. Maybe it may have been the Charlie Burley fight. But I believe it was the Holman Williams fight. And the guy cold cocked him and basically dislocated his jaw. So he went into his defense, or into his fight, against one of the Murderers Row, whether it be Holman Williams or Charlie Burley, and getting repeatedly punched in the mouth. Once he showed that he was favoring his mouth, his jaw, then that's what the target became. And he got knocked down several times in the late rounds and mustered up his will to get back to his feet and go the distance. So, you know, you have to give shots out and kudos to that guy, because these guys were tough guys, ultimately. You would never see nothing close to that in this era, in this day and age. I mean, I don't even think. Maybe the closest thing to that would be a guy with a total of 3 months in between fights and basically fighting top 10 contenders back to back. And that is being done to a certain degree on PBC. But just these great contests where, you know, it's a pick'em type fight. Nobody knows the outcome until it's over. You know, you gotta kind of admit that. Now, he had a lot of ups and downs in his career. And it's kind of fitting because he had a short life. You know, he only lived to be 58 years old. That's still relatively young. But at the same time, he did live life to the fullest. He did experience a lot of contrast in life. Ups and downs, peaks and valleys. So, you know, he did things like he had retired briefly in 1946, and he started, again, like I said, he started lawn care, landscaping service. Then he decided to get back into boxing. And then he retired in 1948. He became an actor. He even married an actress, Lillian Randolph, and he became a boxing trainer. And then his latter years, he drove a truck for Goodwill. And that was the last job he was holding down when he died, which was May 23rd, 1972. But, like I said, he would appear in 2 films, So Dear to My Heart and The Setup, in 1948 and 1949, respectively. Great, interesting guy. Lots of little tidbits and bites of information. But, like I said, rest in peace, Mr. Chase, and thank you for your contributions to this wonderful sport of boxing. And look forward to the next video in the BMR series. Peace out. One love.